It's loud, outrageous, and endlessly chaotic. But behind the laughter of Blazing Saddles, 1974, lies a story far stranger than anyone expected. Bart wasn't just a sheriff dropped into a hostile town. He was a man fighting to hold his dignity in a world determined to break it. The film itself nearly collapsed. The cast faced battles behind the camera, and the truth about how this Western parody survived is filled with accidents, rewrites, and moments of raw humanity hidden beneath the jokes. What you're about to hear are 11 strange secrets that reveal the real journey behind this legendary film, and behind the sheriff who refused to disappear. Part 1. The Sheriff Born from a Script That Almost Died. Bart rides into Rock Ridge like a complete misfit, a black sheriff on horseback in an all-white frontier town, carrying himself more like a city man than a classic cowboy. Few people know he was originally born on the page under another name, Tex X, a script once planned for James Earl Jones in the lead and Alan Arkin as director before the whole project collapsed. Mel Brooks bought the story, reshaped it, and turned it into the Blazing Saddles we know today. From Bart's inner perspective, he feels like the backup option. He wasn't born for this role, he was thrown into it after other plans failed. That sense of being misplaced follows him in every step, from the townspeople's contempt to the self-deprecating jokes he uses just to keep his dignity intact. Part 2. Richard Pryor's Shadow and Laughter as Armor. The script was written by a whole team, including Richard Pryor, one of the sharpest comedians in America at the time, who was originally considered for the role of Bart but rejected by the studio over worries about his drug scandals. On screen, you can feel Pryor's fingerprints in Bart's personality. He meets humiliation with razor-edged sarcasm, turning injustice into cutting humor. Whenever someone looks down on him, Bart fires back with a joke. This repeated negative pattern, always joking to cover his pain, makes the audience laugh, but also reveals a man who's learned to bury his feelings so deeply that even he struggles to touch the hurt inside. Part 3. The Self-Kidnapping and the Survival Art of a Hated Man. The very first time Bart appears before the people of Rock Ridge, they're ready to shoot him on the spot. He only survives thanks to a bizarre move. He points his own gun at himself, pretends to take himself hostage, and slowly backs away from the angry crowd. That role-reversing trick isn't just a throwaway gag. It's the survival strategy of someone who's always at a disadvantage. Whenever he's cornered, facing Hedley Lamar, buying time with a random toll booth in the middle of nowhere, Bart reuses the same pattern. He turns himself into the one directing the scene, instead of standing still as a victim. This callback reveals a deeply ingrained belief. He doesn't think he can win by sheer force, so he must win by writing a smarter script than everyone else. Part 4. A town full of Johnsons and loneliness. In a sea of lookalikes, Rock Ridge looks busy, but almost everyone there shares the same last name, Johnson. It's a joke about sameness and narrow-mindedness in a mythic Old West town, where people are so alike they might as well be copies with different hats. In Bart's eyes, that sea of Johnsons feels like a flat wall, each face a repeated version of the same prejudice. Every time he stands at the podium and introduces himself as Sheriff Bart to a crowd of Johnsons, his smile stiffens just a bit. He's addressing a collective that's not only large, but unified in its suspicion. The repeated name Johnson becomes a symbol of what he's always crashing into: a society trained to think the same, speak the same, and reject him in unison. Part 5. The Gucci Saddle, jazz in the desert, and a man stuck between two eras. Bart rides in on a Gucci-style saddle, dressed neatly, gloved like a modern city gentleman from the 1970s, dropped into 1874. Out in the desert, Count Basie and a full jazz band suddenly appear, playing April in Paris in the middle of nowhere, a deliberate time-slip gag. Those intentional time errors are more than simple jokes. They mirror Bart's inner state. He belongs to the future, where his voice matters, yet he has to fight in a past that refuses to grow up. Every time he straightens his collar or adjusts his gloves, it's a small act of a man trying to hold on to his dignity in a landscape constantly telling him he's wrong place, wrong time. Part 6, a premiere on horseback, and the fear of being just an experiment. Instead of a red carpet, the premiere took place at the Pickwick Drive-In Theatre. Guests, including Cleavon Little, rode horses to the screening, as if the crew were still stuck inside their own Western parody. At the same time, inside the studio, some executives wanted to shelve the film completely after a disastrous early screening where almost no one laughed, only because one studio head insisted on a limited release in a few major cities did the film reach theaters and eventually become a hit. From Bart's position, this story feels familiar. He's sent to Rock Ridge not because anyone believes in him, but because powerful men want to use him as a chaotic experiment. The film about him is treated the same way, a risky bet to be tested first. This repeated pattern of being used as a trial run shows up both in Bart's life and in the movie's fate. Part 7. Harsh language, HBO's warning, and pain wrapped in laughter. Blazing Saddles is full of racist slurs that sound brutal to modern ears. When it arrived on HBO Max, the film was preceded by a roughly 3-minute introduction from a black film historian explaining that the movie uses offensive language to expose bigotry, not to endorse it. Bart, who hears those words thrown at him directly within the story, understands their weight better than anyone. Each time a character hurls an insult at him, his eyes briefly darken, but then that familiar bitter smile returns. It's his signature callback. Swallow the hurt. Answer with a joke. This negative habit keeps him alive in a cruel environment, but it also means his inner life rarely gets a quiet moment to fully feel and process the pain. Part 8, Waco Kid and the Future Bart. Could turn into Waco Kid, the washed-up, alcohol-soaked gunslinger who used to be a legend, is the first person who truly sees Bart as a human being, not a test subject. Their friendship is special. One man once had everything and lost it. The other has never been given a fair shot. In their late-night talks, Waco Kid laughs about his glorious past, but his eyes always look tired. Bart sees in him a possible future version of himself. If he keeps using sarcasm as a shield, if he spends his life explaining himself to people who don't want to hear it, he might also end up hiding in a bottle. Those repeated conversations over drinks are a quiet warning to Bart and to anyone who has grown exhausted from trying to educate the world over and over. Part 9, the studio brawl and stepping out of his own story. Near the climax, the big brawl crashes through the Western set, spills into a musical soundstage, then into the studio commissary. Finally, Bart chases the villain all the way to a theater showing Blazing Saddles and buys a ticket to watch his own movie. That's more than just a fourth-wall-breaking joke. It's a psychological turning point. For the first time, Bart gets to sit as an audience member and look back at his journey. Until then, he's always been in the center of the storm, under everyone else's judgment. Now, he steps outside the frame and watches it all from the outside. For older viewers today, that moment feels familiar. After decades of working, enduring, and fighting, there comes a time when someone just wants to sit down and watch their own life like a film. Funny, chaotic, and a bit bittersweet. Part 10. From almost shelved to a place in film history. Despite almost being buried by the studio, Blazing Saddles became one of the most successful comedies of the 1970s, a major box office hit, and later ranked number 6 on the American Film Institute's list of the 100 greatest American comedies. In 2006, the Library of Congress added it to the National Film Registry as culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. For Bart, that's a kind of late reversal of judgment. His story, once treated like a shock value stunt, is now recognized as a milestone in the way cinema talks about race. The feeling of being looked down on, of being used as a tool to stir trouble, somehow transforms into proof that laughter can change things, a tool he has always used, sometimes to the point of overuse, to protect himself. To Part 11, the final smile, the limousine, and what it means for those past midlife. At the very end, Bart says he's getting a little bored of protecting the town, then leaves the horse behind and rides off in a limousine with Waco Kid, like two men clocking out after a long shift. It's a strange ending, but it fits the character's inner life. After an entire journey of constantly proving he belongs, he chooses a very human conclusion. No more savior, no more proving. He simply wants to be a normal person, with the right to step out of the role. The usual negative pattern, always being the one at the front, always carrying everyone's growth on his shoulders, is finally broken. This time, he doesn't run away because he's afraid. He leaves because he knows he doesn't owe anyone anymore. For viewers over 50, that image carries a special meaning. Throughout life, many have been like Bart, smiling to hide hurt, working twice as hard just to gain basic respect. And at some point, the greatest desire is no longer another victory, but a quiet ride away from all those heavy roles with enough peace to look back at everything and say, that story is complete now.